So, good day everyone. So, we are the group 7 and we're going to report the lesson 14 which is all about Jose Rizal being an Asian nationalist. So, I am with my co-reporters with Miss Angela Nicole Araña and with Miss Yasmin Lucille Digal. For our learning objectives, we have at the end of this lesson, the students shall be able to examine the values highlighted by the various representations of Rizal as national symbol and advocate the values Rizal's life encapsulates. So, when you hear the word nationalism, what comes into your mind first? So, in my case, it is loyalty and devotion. So, to define it, nationalism is defined as describing two phenomena. The first one is the attitude that the members of a nation possess about their nation's identity and the actions that the members of a nation take to achieve and attain self determination. So, for the first phenomena, it raises questions about what it is to belong to a nation and about how much one ought to care about one's nation, while the second one pertains to whether sovereignty requires the acquisition of full statehood and complete authority over domestic and international affairs, or whether something less than statehood suffices. So to proceed, Dr. Jose Rizal was a nationalist, and in 1882, Rizal took licentiate in medicine at the Universidad Central de Madrid and afterwards specialized in ophthalmology in France and Germany under Dr. Louis de Weckert and Dr. Otto Becker. For his almost 10 years of stay abroad from 1882 to 1892, Rizal made sure that his time was duly spent in various efforts in securing better status for the Philippines. He had proven that distance is not a hindrance in fulfilling one's commitment to a noble purpose. So he returned to Manila in 1892 and created the La Liga Filipina, which is a political group that called for peace change for the islands. So, nevertheless, the Spanish officials were displeased and exiled Rizal to the island of Mindanao. So, when the Philippine Revolution broke out in 1896, Rizal was in Dapitan as an exile. Patriotic leaders attempted to secure Rizal's approval of the revolution, but Dr. Pio Valenzuela, Andres Bonifacio's emissary, revealed in his 1896 account that Rizal did not favor it. So in his later account, however, Valenzuela reversed his earlier testimony by saying that the hero was not against the revolution, instead provided advices that could be of help to the revolutionaries. So in June 1896, Valenzuela went to Dapitan to convince Rizal to support the revolution, then being waged by the Katipunan or the Kataas-Taasang Kagalang-galangang Katipunan ng Mga Anak ng Bayan or the KKK, a revolutionary group formed for the Philippines to gain independence from Spain. Rizal had told Pio that the country was not yet ready to launch a revolution against Spanish colonial rule, although he recommended the expertise of military expert Antonio Luna for the Katipunan. Based on the testimony of Pio, before a military court in September 1896, Rizal had opposed the revolution against Spain. But after 2 decades, Valenzuela reversed his story, saying Rizal was not actually against the revolution but rather advised the Katipuneros to wait for the right timing, secure the needed weapons, and get the support of the rich and scholarly class. So this was according to an article titled Jose Rizal and the Revolution posted on September 18, 2012 on the National Historical Commission of the Philippines website. So Rizal may not be direct participants to the two phenomena that greatly affected the Philippines, but his name was evoked by the partakers and will always be honored as inspiration and guiding force in the success of the said episodes. So to proceed in our lecture, we have first the nationalism. So again, this is the idea of oneness by a group of people who possess common traditions, shared history, a set of goals, and belief in a specific future. So there is a strong identification within the values, the heroes, and the traits of a country. So the idea of based on my research, according to Hans Kohn, nationalism is an ideology based on the premise that the individual's loyalty and devotion to the nation state surpass other individual or group interests. So all in all, it emphasizes loyalty, devotion, or allegiance to a nation. So to add about Jose Rizal, so basically Rizal is an advocate for great reforms during the Spanish era that shows his love for our country, which is the Philippines. So he is an author of a books that has shown his principles that up to date people are still learning from it. So it shows love for our country because he desires unity for his country without any violent actions or any revolutions act towards people who are making themselves as superior to Filipinos but uses his knowledge and virtues by writing novels. So he emphasized the importance of Tagalog language and the language will not be a basis to know their status in life. But at the end of it, Dr. Jose Rizal just want our country to be one and be proud as being a Filipino.
The next is we have the democracy. Democracy comes from the Greek word demos, which means people. It is a government in which all the power is shared with the democracy by citizens. And democracy is sometimes known as the representative government. It is because democracy is a system of government in which laws, policies, and leadership are directly or indirectly decided by the people. And here in the Philippines, or the politics here in the Philippines, are governed by the three branch system of government, which are the legislative, executive, and judicial. And we, the citizen or the people of the Philippines, have the power and right to vote for a new leader for our motherland. The next is we have the imperialism. Imperialism is the policy of extending a nation's control and authority beyond its territorial boundaries through the acquisition or acquiring of new territories. The difference between colonialism and imperialism, although we may think that they are the same, they are different from each other. So the colonialism is the where one country physically exert complete control or another over another country, while the imperialism is a formal or informal economic and political domination of one country over the other. And there are some five motives of imperialism, including the exploration, economic expansion, increased political power, the diffusion of ideological beliefs, and the spreading of the religious beliefs and practices to others. Now we will discuss the readings of Rizal Concepts of Filipino Nationalism by the book J. Rizal, The Man and the Hero, 2014, pages 242 to 243. So nationalism as a concept was still vague from its humble beginnings in 1872, particularly for the poor people of the Philippines. And Jose Rizal and the other reformers at that time had to scant idea of what it is all about. And during the 1872, we had this Cavite Mutiny, and around 200 locally recruited colonial troops and laborers rose up or nagpunta doon with their beliefs that it would be the elevate to a national uprising. And however, the mutiny or the Cavite Mutiny was unsuccessful. It is because the government soldier executed many of the participants that day and began to crack down the burgeoning Philippines nationalist movement. And however, there are many scholars believe that the Cavite Mutiny in 1872 was the beginning of Filipino nationalism that would eventually lead to the Philippine Revolution of 1896. Rizal's concept of nationalism is parallel with that Hans Cons, who is nationalism first and foremost a state of mind act of consciousness. And according to him, Hans Cons, nationalism is an ideology based on the premise that the individual's loyalty and devotion to the nation state surpass other individual or groups' interests. And Rizal showed national sentiment throughout his career as an even as a youth through his poem A la Juventud Filipina, and which was dedicated to the youth. And he admonished that the Filipino youth to strive hard because they are considered the fair hope of the motherland. Or in Tagalog, sinabi ng ating pambansang bayani na si Dr. Jose Rizal na ang kabataan ay siyang pag-asa ng bayan. And he nurtured the same ideals during his manhood as manifested in all his writings like his two famous novels, The Noli Me Tangere and The El Filibusterismo. Even in his personal letters, when he called that called to all women that of the Philippines to poverty, illiteracy, and ignorance. And all of his efforts were concentrated on achieving his goals. The next reporter is we have Miss Yasmin Digal.
Now let's move on to the next reading, which is all about the factors in the early development of Rizal's nationalism from J. Rizal, The Man and the Hero, 2014, pages 244 to 245. So first, Rizal emphasized the importance of the Tagalog language and its impact upon the Philippines. He realized that a national culture was needed to develop a sense of nationalism. Next, he was openly critical of the friars, the injustice in the Cavite incident, the haughty attitude of many of the Spanish friars, and the increasing liberalism of the Filipino friars prompted Rizal to hammer away on the inequities of the church. He then defended Filipino civil rights. When his mother was jailed for her role in a family dispute, Rizal systematically exposed the double standard of justice that Filipinos had faced since Magellan. He also discovered the power of the pen. Not only did Rizal consider complete reading important, he was also an active literacy critic. Lastly, he conceived a form of gradual nationalism wherein what Rizal demanded was an education, a commitment to Filipino culture, and a vision of a bright future. Next reading is all about the reasons for modern Philippine nationalism, also from J. Rizal, The Man and the Hero, 2014, pages 244 or 245 to 246. So the city of Manila and its relationship to the Spanish government and the church helped to foment revolution. Also, relationship between the friars and the Spanish government was a tenuous and often fragile one. So the end result was that they took turns manipulating each other, and the controversies they created with the Indios produced a revolutionary class. Also, the Chinese mestizo, who came in as a merchant and emerged as a nationalist, was one of the many forces that hastened the drive towards defined Filipino nationalism. And lastly, backwater nationalism implies a highly developed form of government that took place in the Philippines. It describes Rizal Calamba nationalism or Bonifacio's Katipunan vision for the Philippines. So that ends our topic for Lesson 14, Jose Rizal, an Asian nationalist. Thank you for listening.